All right, my third grade friends, today we are going to make our clay sculpture. So we're going to make like a little hanging plaque that has your initial on it. So I gave you 3 balls of clay. If you want, you can use 2 or you can just use 1. It's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and combine 2. And we want to make sure that we get all of the air bubbles out. So I'm going to do a process called wedging. And this means that I am going to smush it together to really try to get all of those air bubbles out. Notice that I'm working on a piece of paper. It's going to save your table at home. Okay, once I get it wedged and you don't see the cracks anymore, then I can roll it into a bigger ball. Okay, I'm just going to take it in a circle and go around and around. And again, I'm going to wedge it a couple more times just to get those last couple of cracks and air bubbles out. If we have an air bubble inside, what happens is when we put in the kiln heats up to 2,000 degrees, and that little air bubble, which is trapped inside of the hard clay that's cooked, the hot air expands and expands and expands, and eventually the clay gives way and it explodes. So it's really important to not have any air bubbles in your clay. Okay, now that I have this wedged and pushed together, I'm going to give it a little squish with my hand, and then I'm going to use a rolling pin, whatever you have. If you have markers, that's fine. I do like to use markers on the side as a guideline to keep it from getting too thin. And you'll see I start in the middle, open hands, and just push back and forth. Now I turn it, and I do the same thing. I push down until I hit the markers. Okay, this is still a little bit thick, so I'm going to switch to pencils now and make it a little bit thinner. The reason that I use these guidelines on the side, these pencils and markers, is because typically when you're using a rolling pin at home, your instinct is to roll a hump. So by using these on the side, we get a nice flat roll. So again, I'm going to go ahead and roll it all the way to the edge. And now I'm going to pick it up, turn it 90 degrees, roll it again. Okay. Now, I don't exactly love this shape, especially with the cracks. So you can take your pencil or your toothpick, whichever, and you can give it a new shape, any shape you like. I am going to give mine a heart shape. So I'm going to go ahead and you're just basically drawing through the clay and removing those chunks. And I'm going to come here and finish that shape. Peel off this side. Come around here and do the same thing. Come right to a point. And I love this shape. Okay. Now we're going to get rid of all of these little crumblies on the side, smooth out our corners, smooth out our shape, make sure that it's a nice heart. We're just using our finger for this part. I call it our magic eraser finger, so getting rid of any cracks and any crumbles. I'm going to pick it up so that I get the back side too. Now you can do any shape you want. If you want to do a circle, you can. If you want to do a square, you could do that. I'm going to use my magic eraser finger to get rid of that crack in the back. Smoothing out all of these edges and getting rid of any of these little pieces that crumble off. Okay, now while I've got it upside down, I want to carve in my name and if you want the year too. Now you can either use a pencil for that or you can use the toothpick. And you don't want to go very deep. So I'm going to go S-T-O-N-E. And then I'm going to do 20. Notice how I'm just picking off those little crumbles as they get stuck to my pencil. 2021. Okay, now I didn't do it up near the top because we're going to put some holes in it so we can hang this. All right, get rid of all my crumblies. I sort of have this little trash pile going, and that's fine. Now, if you wanted to add texture, you could do that. You can add texture a couple of different ways. You could add it using your pencil eraser. You could use your pencil itself. You could use the cap of a marker. Put in some just gentle textures. You could leave it smooth if you want. That's up to you. I'm going to leave this one smooth. Okay. Using my magic eraser fingers. All right. Now I'm going to put 2 holes in this because we're going to end up hanging a little cord. Don't put your holes too close to the edge because they will crack. So I'm going to push this all the way through. You can see that it leaves a little plug in my straw. That's fine. You can pull it out if you want, or you can leave it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Push it all the way through. And I have a nice shape. Now, with that third ball, or with your scraps, it's up to you. I'm going to create a little coil. Now, I probably don't need all of this, so I'm going to start with half. And I'm going to roll it into a ball to start. Now I'm going to roll it back and forth. When we're coiling, we want to make sure it's nice and even the whole way down. And then we are eventually going to start rolling from the middle and roll our way out. And that's how we keep it pretty. If you're working on a piece of paper like mine, you might want to tape it down. My paper is a little wiggly. If you notice that you're starting to get an oval shape like I am, just give it a squish and push it down a little. I'm going to go ahead and keep rolling this letter out. We're going to put our initial on here. Now you can do your first initial or your last initial, that's up to you. Okay, notice how I start in the middle and I work my way out. And it keeps getting thinner. We want it to be nice and even the whole way down. You can see how I didn't really need that whole first ball. Okay, now I'm going to take my letter, or my shape, and I'm going to figure out my letter. I probably need about half of this. So I'm going to go ahead. You could do cursive letters, you could do regular letters. I'm going to do a cursive letter L. Oops, and it broke. That happens. No big deal. We can either continue with what we've got. Maybe I won't do a cursive letter L. Maybe I'll just do a regular one. So the cursive letter L goes like this. And it looks like it might break again. Ah, stinker. Okay. So I've got this. I don't especially love it. Luckily I have more to my roll here. So I'm going to try it again with a different letter L. Maybe just a straight L. Okay. That's better. I'm going to put in a nice bend though in the corner so that it looks like a real L and not just a rounded shape. I could do an S if I wanted to for stone. Okay. It's funny, it almost looks like a face. So we're going to give it a little press and then pick it up. Now you can kind of see the shadow here of where that letter was. Now we're going to do a technique called scoring and slipping. So wherever that letter touched, I'm going to scratch the surface, and this is called scoring. And I'm going to scratch the surface of this too. This is how we attach pieces when we're doing additive pottery. So when we want to add something, we need to scratch it Sometimes artists will use a toothbrush even. I'm just going to use my toothpick. You could use a pencil. And then we're going to slip it. So for slipping, we're just going to add water because our clay is very, very wet right now. So I'm going to add a bunch of water here and on my piece. And then I'm going to attach it. And now that water is going to go right in between the cracks and help the two pieces join into a solid piece. All right. Now, I've got my letter on. I've got this. Now remember, we're going to have a wire coming through here, so it won't really look like eyes once we get done. I'm going to take a fingertip of water, and I'm just going to go in and smooth out the rest of my piece and any cracks that might be there. I'm really going to give this a good smush to press it in. Come in and around and twice. I'm not going to do it a whole lot because if you add too much water to clay, it turns into mud. So my lights just turned out on me. I do want to get this corner. You probably can't see it, but it's pretty cracked up. So let's get that nice and smooth. I'm going to get my letter L nice and smooth. I want the ends nice and smooth. All right, so this looks pretty good. I'm going to let this dry overnight, and then you can bring it on into me, and I will let it continue to dry. It usually takes about a full week to dry. And I can keep on it in the art studio, and then once it's ready to go, I can throw it in the kiln, and we'll fire it up, and then I will let you know when it's time to glaze. All right, so you've got your name on the back, you've got your letter attached by scoring and slipping, and you have 2 holes for us to hang it. And this could be any shape. You could do a basketball, a baseball, anything you want. The rest of this clay, you can do what you want with it. I won't be able to fire it, but if you want to do a project with it at home and make it air dry clay, you can, and then you can just paint it up however you want. If you notice that it's starting to crack like this because it's getting dry, just add a little bit of water and knead it back up, and it will come right back to life. All right, my friends, if you have any questions, send me a note in Schoology and I will answer. All right.